Oh, update on the Honda Z50. The frame is over here partially primed partially because I can't because I'm in Ontario and we're still locked down. I can't go get stuff. Um, a bunch of the pieces have been repainted, sanded down and painted. It's just semi-gloss black, hanging from my rafters everywhere. Parts over here, exhaust painted in high heat, just brackets and chunks. And the tank has been primed and sanded, waiting for paint. I do have a new set of fenders that I ordered. Right there, they're in red. I have to find out what color red that is because I have to paint the rest of the bike that color. Hopefully it's an original Honda color. And I'm just sanding down and painting the wheels right now. I've completely disassembled them and sanded them down. They're pretty simple. The front and rear almost the same, other than the wheel hubs are a little bit different. Brakes are all good. I just have to take everything apart and clean it. Got new tires and tubes ready to go. I do have a new carb, which I ordered off of Amazon. Because if you watched the first one, the carb, oh, I guess I'll use the gold wing as a table today. These are only like 29 bucks for a brand new carb. It's a pretty good deal. I'll show you it compared to the original one. So, need a second hand, sorry. So this is the replacement carb. There's the blue is the fuel nipple that we didn't have. And it's got the carb slider in there. Choke, basically the same as the original. Let's put that up beside the original and see what's different. The fuel screw, the fuel float bowl drain screw is different. But I'll swap it and put the original one in because that's cooler. Otherwise, same damn thing. So for 29 bucks, it's not even worth, unless you've got all the parts there. Oh, I did cut myself, damn it. Don't grind too close to your leg with a grinder. Was there something else I wanted to show you? There was, and I can't think of what it is. Oh, engine's just cleaned and sitting, waiting to go back in over there in the corner. But, and the seat cover's been ordered. Nothing really much else to show. Once I start reassembling, I'm gonna show the reassembly as we're going along there. But mostly it's just cleaning down old parts and sanding them down and refinishing them. And, you know, if you're redoing this, most of it is satin black. Don't use gloss black, it's just gonna look like crap. Flat is too flat except for engine parts. And make sure you use high heat paint on your exhaust if you're redoing that in your exhaust shields. Do use high heat. Barbecue paint works perfectly. That's about it. There's not too much else going on. Again, it's COVID and I'm waiting for parts. Some of this stuff is taking weeks and weeks and weeks to get here. Anyway, I'll update as soon as I get any further. Once these tire wheels are all painted up, I'll show the reassembly of that stuff with the hubs and everything. Just cleaning up the brake drums, front and rear, basically the same, or the brake assemblies. The drum is on the outside of the hub, and on the inside is the springs and the brake shoes. And you've got the brake arm here. This is a little 8mm nut and bolt. Loosen that, take it off, and then pull the arm off. It's got a little spline shaft, and then there's a little pointer underneath. Can you see that? That has to come off as well. And then you can tape it off. I just leave the axles on while I'm doing this, and then once these are all, so I can have something to hold them with. And once they're all dry, I'll pull the axles off and clean them. This is I believe that's the rear one. Yes, it is. And this is the front. So again, you know, clean all this up, sand it down. These brake shoes are really good. I'm just gonna clean the crap out of them, lubricate them, and paint them. And I'm using farm implement paint. If you're lucky enough to have a store near you that sells farm supplies, it's farm implement aluminum. color. That's what I'm using on the wheels as well. And it sticks to anything, and it's got a high zinc content, so it's rust resistant and rust proof. It goes right over top of little bits of rust that were on the original rims. You can, you know, sand them down, but you don't have to get everything perfectly clean down to bare metal. It's like a Rust-Oleum, but actually even better, sturdier, but doesn't come in many colors. It's like aluminum, black, white, red, whatever. Farm implement paint. It's really good stuff. Anyway, I'm going to clean this down and paint it, and again, be back when I'm done everything else. I've also painted the hubs, as you can see there. Nothing much to show you on that, just the hubs, and checked all the bearings, and they're all good. So just continuing with these wheels and wheel hub assemblies. Okay, this is the little pointer that tells where your brakes. See the little arrow here? And it tells when your brakes are worn down, so you don't have to take the wheel hub off. And it is splined. Can you tell? The little hole in it is got little teeth just like the shaft here, because it sits on the bottom shaft and rotates with it on the bottom there. Sorry, all dirty. I'm working on a bike, sorry. There we go, slips off. And that was, I believe, originally black. Was it? Or was it anything? It was just unpainted. So that's what it's going to go back to, and that's why I've taken the arm and everything off, because those weren't originally painted from the factory. But the wheel hub, or the brake cover, brake outer assembly was. Goes back in the brake parts bucket. I'm going to clean this off. I'll tape this, so this arm, you don't want to get paint on there, because then it's going to be hard to slide the actuator arm on. And again, leave the axle in there because it gives you something to hold on to. Okay, the majority of you guys watching this stuff probably know how to do cleanup things or whatever. I'm using a brass wire wheel on a drill to take off the most nasty stuff, and then sanding down with 320 grit sandpaper, which is now completely toast, but this is getting in all the crooks and crevices. And since I'm using farm implement paint, I don't even need to use brake cleaner to clean all the stuff off. The dirt and grime I've already washed off with degreaser. I just blow it off with an air hose, and then it's basically ready to paint. And for getting into little places, you can use a different size wire wheel for getting in the little nooks and crannies. And then we'll just simply, all these bolts will be polished up on a wire wheel. These were not painted from the factory, so they'll just be polished up again, as will the brake arms. The actuator arms front and back, I believe, are exactly the same thing. I don't see why Honda would make two different ones. Yeah, I think they're exactly the same. And as are these little pointers. This sprocket looks okay, actually. Yeah, that's not bad, actually. Anyway, I'm going to keep cleaning up all this stuff. And once the paint's dry tomorrow, we'll put all the wheels together. I'm just going to leave the paint to dry tonight. Again, the farm implement paint dries ridiculously quick. It's like 10 minutes. Oh, let's see if this is a Canadian product. Oh, unfortunately it is Canadian. I'm sorry. But yeah, this stuff works really well. I don't know if you've got farm implement paint where you are, but for this type of stuff, it is ridiculously good. Much better than Tremclad or Rust-Oleum, but sticks to almost anything. Yeah, I'll let all this stuff dry, and we'll start putting the wheels together tomorrow, and cleaning all the axles and stuff. They haven't been cleaned off, but I'll clean all the hardware off, and then we'll start reassembling the wheels. Sorry, I'm starting partway through this one. I just, the last video, I wasn't even on camera. Sorry. Stuck the new tube inside the tire, and then lightly inflated it so the tube fills out the tire, but doesn't expand past the tire side. So you still got this nice opening, because you don't want to pinch the tube in there. So the tube's only partially inflated. So make sure it's not stuck in there. And now you've got two halves of the wheel. You've got the deep half, which has the hole for the valve stem in it. just slide that on and make sure the stem comes straight up through. You don't want it on an angle. You don't want it angled like that or like that, because it'll pinch that rubber. I have to turn it back this way the tiniest little bit. And that's coming in and out straight. And now you take your shorter half, and the easiest way to measure them up is here and here. These two bolts line up. None of the other ones do, but the inner hub bolt and the wheel bolt line up. So find where that happens and put those two together. And I can take the bolts that just polished, and the nut side, the nut and washer, are going to go on the valve stem side. Not all the way on, there we go. They're a little hard to line up, a tiny bit, not a lot. Go through there. There we go. So I'll put all four of those in and we'll be back in a sec. Okay, I've got all four nuts and bolts in there, and I'm just going to tighten them with an impact, because I don't want to scratch the wheels. I don't want to use a wrench. But if you have a wrench, you can. They should probably be about 25-30 foot-pounds. They are not ridiculously tight. So I've got it, my torque wrench, or my impact, set on a very low setting. And just slowly tighten it all the way around. Now we're going to put some air into it to about 20 foot-pounds. And that'll just make sure to pop the wheel. Oops, I don't have that in front of you. That'll make sure to pop the wheel, the tire, onto the rim. And make the tube fill out the tire. I believe for riding it's about 16 psi. So now we need the hub for this side, and the brake drum, always, this side of the wheel is deeper than this side. See, it's like an inch and a bit, and this side is about 2 inches, or maybe about a quarter inch more. They're not that much of a difference, but the side with the valve stem is the deep side, and that's also the brake side. So that's the side the drum, brake drum, goes onto. Slide it through. Match up the 3 holes. Now this is has the 3 bolts for the rear sprocket, so this one is different from the front. The front's essentially the same. Let's find those 3 bolts. I believe these are 12mm bolts. These are 13s and 14s. That's still in front of you, I hope. Two and third one. Well, since I'm far too lazy to walk 3 feet to get a 12mm torque socket, I'm just going to tighten these my hand to about 15 foot-pounds. Why is that one not bolting in? Oh, have I missed them all? How do I miss them all? Hold on a second. Something's going on here. How did I miss every single one of those? I blame the heat. It's now warm here today, so let's line that up. That was, I thought, lined up. Now with the paint on the center, it's a little bit thicker, so and the hub's got paint on it too, so it's a little bit harder to get it through, but the bolts will pull it through once they get into once I get them in. Come on. What are you guys doing? There we go. That's one. And I apologize if these videos are long, but I'm not a Haynes manual that just says remove or take off or put on or whatever. I try to show it because some people, most of you probably know how to do this stuff, but some people might not. So the only way you can learn is by watching and seeing it done. So that's started to pull the hub through now, and it's nice and aligned. Now down here, you'll notice the crack in the seam between the two wheels. The wheel halves, that's not going to be completely flush. There's always going to be a bit of a gap in there. Okay, so I'm going to tighten these three up and be back when I'm done. Okay, I've got all the... I'm using an alternator box for a table. All the wheel bolts back in, and the hub bolts are back in, and they're torqued to about 15 foot-pounds, these 15, 18 foot-pounds. You can use blue thread locker on them if you'd like, for an extra area of safety. So this is the inside of that. This is the brake drum. I did not sand that up very much. I sanded a little bit. There's still a little bit of rust on there, but as soon as the bike starts riding and the pads start going on there, that'll be smooth and shiny in no time. Now this orange rubber part here is the bearing seal. Now a quick little tip, if you want to re-grease your bearings, you don't feel like pulling them all the way out, you can pop that little seal off carefully with a flathead screwdriver or a pick. You want to bend it. And you see the bearing in there? See the bearings? And you can pack a little bit of extra grease into the bearing. These bearings were running nice and smooth and free, so I didn't really worry too much about this. But I figured I'd show you guys this is an option. And now to put this back on, lay the seal gently back on, get it lined up. Oops. Get in there. And you're going to push that in with an 18mm socket. You're just going to push down on it. It should pop itself right back in. final lip. I'm going to gently push down with a flathead. I think an 18 might have been a little too wide. 17 is probably a better bet. Oh, I put a little too much grease in there. It's not wanting to pop itself back in. Oh, there it goes. Just got a bit of an excess amount of grease I put in there, I think. Okay, that seal is on. And now we're ready to do our brake drum. So I always, when I take stuff apart, I leave the axle in and everything hanging from it so I know where it goes and so they don't get lost. Let's take that end bolt, needs to be replaced. It's kind of chowdered, but that's what I've got for now. Take the axle out. And we're going to slide the brake assembly back on. Take the tape off where I painted the cam arm there, and let me zoom you in a little bit, if I can. Because this is the weird part about the brake setting it up. Let me see if I can get this closer. So you see actually one thing first. Ugh. Get our pick back again. And move this camera. Oh, maybe zoom out a little bit. There's a little grease seal here around the brake cam. It's felt. And you can gently remove that. And what it does is it keeps water from getting inside. Hopefully this one's not completely past it. Come on out of there. Come out without ripping. Okay. Okay, so it's just a little felt dust seal or water seal. And it needs to be covered in grease. You can use oil too, but grease is better. Come on. There we go. So we're going to take some grease and pack it down in that little recess there where the seal goes. Spread around a bit, and the grease will soak up into that into the felt washer. It's kind of a washer, a seal, and that will keep it. Now where did I put it? There we go. That will keep water from getting in. and keep the brake cam lubricated as well. I'm hoping you can see that. Okay, so on the brake, you know what, let's do this out. That's probably the easiest. So on the brake, you're gonna see there's a little arrow and there's a little notch on this cam right there. It's basically pointing toward the axle. Now you take, if I can find it. Oh no, did I lose it? Shoot. Back in 1 sec, I gotta find this part. Okay, never mind, it was sitting right in front of me. The little brake pointer. There is, you can see it. There's a large tooth trying to, so there's an arrow pointing on that. This goes to the outside. There's a little arrow you can see on there, maybe. Can you? An arrow etched into this that points to the outside. You don't want that upside down, you want it facing you. And then there's a larger tooth in the splined cam that lines up with. It's the only way to put it on or off. It has to be touching. Where are you? There we go. And slides on to the bottom like that. And now on your brake arm, there's a dot. See the dot there in front of my thumb? Right there beside the inner circle. And that also lines up with that notch there. You slip it on. And, oops, one notch off. There we go. See those are lined up? I'll point them out there and there. That's the little spot where the notch is on this. And so when you pull the brakes, if that arrow ever points to the other arrow, the arrow built into the body here, then your brakes are worn out. Now we simply put, come on, the parts are hiding from me, the little screw retainer back on. This is an 8mm nut and bolt. You only need an 8mm socket is the easiest to use on this because it self-holds itself over here. It kind of sits in this little notch and holds itself. Get on there far enough, there we go. This actually isn't that hard to do. Trying to keep it still while doing it in front of a camera is the harder part. So there we go, that's in, and I can tighten that. I'm even going to tighten that with, I do have a big 8mm impact socket because I'm just going to do it by hand. It doesn't have to be extremely tight. And it just pinches those two together and holds it on there. Plus that groove that's on this cam here, that bolt goes through it so it cannot pop on and off. This is just merely to retain it. All good. Back in 1 second, I'm going to grab that shaft. Okay, drop of penetrating fluid, lubricant oil on the inner. Oops, that one came out a lot. Pivot for the pads, and right there as well on the cam. Make sure I get it off before it gets on the pads, and then work it in with the brake lever. See the spring here just pulls them back in, and they're pushed out by the cam, and they pivot down there. These pads were in really good shape, so we're keeping them. Wheel, brake assembly, stay, and then the axle nut just goes up through the middle, and I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the axle bolt. I have a little bit of grease in this cup. Oh, you know what? Before I do this, I might as well bolt the sprocket back on. The sprocket's been mostly cleaned off. This little indented area, see there's an area that's flat and an indented area, like the indented area goes toward the wheel hub. And there's 3, I believe, ooh, there we go. I believe these are 14s. No, these are 13mm nuts that hold that on, and they are on at about 20-25 foot-pounds as well, or maybe not even that much. I think these are 12s actually. Probably about 20 foot-pounds. Yeah, I believe about 20 would be about right. Torque generally goes by bolt size. And a bolt this big is not going to take much more than 20 foot-pounds of torque. Think of how big your lug nuts are, and they take about 80 to 100. On bigger trucks, bigger SUVs, they take about 120. But think of how much bigger they are than these little bolts. So that's about it. Brake hub again goes back on, and the shaft goes through, and we put these aside. There's the front one. We stick these aside until we're oh, where's my cap? And until we're ready to continue on. I believe that is this side. And the spacer goes in, yeah, between, in there between the sprocket, with the wider part toward the sprocket. Let's make sure. I don't know if that's correct or not. No, it's not. Narrow part goes in. Always check. Okay. So those are 2 kind of sub-assemblies set aside, and you just do it part by part. Get everything all restored and done in little pieces, and it doesn't make it seem as if it's that big and daunting a job. It's fun. It's, you know, something you can do. You can do these wheels in a couple of hours, restore them, completely repaint them, sand them down, paint them, whatever, and then bolt them back together. And it gives you a sense of accomplishment. You've done something, you've done a part, and you can see the result of, you know, it's getting closer and closer. Trying to tackle everything all at once kind of makes it most projects tougher. Doing little things and getting something accomplished one part at a time and seeing the result of it is it's really helpful when you're restoring stuff. Anyway, that's Ninja. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. Forget it. If you like this stuff, like, subscribe, whatever. I think I'm a heat stroke. Thanks for watching. Just doing a quick paint of the frame and the front fork. I'm going to be using International Harvester red, which is ridiculously close to the stock Honda red. Not the orangey red. That's kind of like, you can't really, you'd have to go get that mixed. And it's, I don't like the orangey red as much as the red. Again, I'm not going for concourse restoration. I'm going for a usable bike. And this implement paint is really, it goes on thick, it's durable, same as the stuff that I used on the wheels. And it's going to resist scratching and stuff for years. This isn't, I mean, it's not going to be stuck in an attic and never used again, or behind a bar. I mean, maybe it will be, I don't know. But I'm just building it for someone to actually ride. And anyway, this red is, I'm going to be pulling these bolts off once it's all painted to clean them off, the swing arm bolts, and then put them back in. I didn't show, look at this, a wheel bearing, sorry, steering head bearing is still sitting in there. I did film disassembling the steering head, but I didn't turn on the camera apparently while I was doing it. So I'll just show how it goes back together when it goes back together. But if you are taking one apart, put the front end in a box, because all the bearings are separate. They're all little balls. Like all old Hondas, they're not like a connected bearing thing. They all sit as little independent balls inside of a race, and they fall out really quick. So anyway, I'm just going along painting everything. Again, this is International Harvester implement paint, farm paint, for durability. And I'm painting it with a rattle can. I'm painting it outside. Again, it's not going to be a concourse show-winning restoration. Just wants to look good when it's done. Anyway, I'll show you the results once this is all painted. I think I'm almost wrapped up for the day. I'm trying to figure out, I believe I was painting all my black trim semi-gloss, but looking at the steering, I think that's flat. So I may have to repaint everything flat. If you do know for sure, let me know. I've been trying to look on the net and I can't find any information as to whether it's flat or semi-gloss. It doesn't even seem to be discussed anywhere as to what it is. So I'm going to do about 3 or 4 coats on this whole bike. And we'll be back once this is all done. We're getting close to reassembling. Again, waiting for parts. So the frame is painted, front fender is painted. Let's turn this off. Fork. And I just wanted to show you the aftermarket fenders you can order online. They come in like black, white, and red. And here's the reason for choosing the International Harvester red, because it's almost dead on the aftermarket fender red. I am going to paint the fenders. It's also okay for plastic. So just to make sure they all match. This is just the second coat on the tank. And this stuff is fuel and oil resistant and everything else you would expect on a farm implement paint. Again, I can't say enough about this stuff. It is, if it's a color that you can use, it is wonderful stuff to use. And it really lays down good. It doesn't really run. Or, I mean, it'll run. Any paint will run if you just hit there and hold the trigger, the button down. But you can lay it on pretty thick without worrying about it running. I've got a little bit of a, can you see it right there? I don't know if you can see. right there. So that's fine. I'll just wait for this coat to dry and then sand it and do the last coat. So this will be the last coat for the night. I'll let that dry overnight and then sand it with like a 400 grit wet and dry sandpaper, and then finish painting in the morning, and hopefully start putting stuff back together. I don't know that there's anything else I need to paint red. This stuff dries pretty quick as well. This has been like 20 minutes. Oops, about 20 minutes. It's already dry to the touch. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it hanging overnight and let it dry on its own. It's pretty humid out today, so it won't dry super quick, but about 15 minutes and it's almost dry to the touch, like you can pick it up and move it. So anyway, oh, one more thing I found out. The bearings, the ball bearings I was talking about in the, don't smoke, it's bad for you. Oh God. Digging, they're just soaking in gas right now to get all the old grease off. Anyway, the little ball bearings that are in the front steering head are the exact same size, 4 millimeters, as hardened steel, stainless steel BBs. So, got a BB gun, and you lose one of those bearings, which you probably will when you pull the front end apart. If you got a BB gun, you got replacements, or your local sporting goods store will have replacements. Don't use copper bearing BBs, use the stainless steel ones. Okay, I waited about an hour and I did my last coat. This is the gloss of this paint after about 4 coats. It's self-leveling. Again, it sticks to almost anything. Not really. It even hid up that little smudge I had on top. It's even hid that. So it's pretty damn good for a rattle can. Ah, fucking bug. Excuse my language. Damn it, a bug got in my paint. I didn't even see him. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching.